Hi, Peter from PK Data. Today's video, we are going to focus on how to download and configure AIM's RSA3 software. This is the software that not only allows you to communicate with your device and configure it, but also later on get to the analysis. We're not going to cover all of that today. This video is just going to cover downloading the software onto your computer and then setting it up and getting ready to use. Other videos that we have on our site focus on how to use that software to communicate with your Solo 2 and how to communicate with your Solo 2 DL. You can go check out those videos. They'll be posted up soon. And they go into detail on how to communicate, configure, and then later on we'll have a whole series on the analysis side of how to use the data that you've collected to analyze your routing and make your better. So right now we're just going to focus on AIM's RSA3. So the first thing that we're going to do is to navigate to a browser page here. And we're going to go to AIM's software firmware download page, which is right here. I've got it bookmarked because I go back here very often. And the reason why is they just released this RS3, the RSA3 analysis software, in March of 2022. And they're constantly updating and making changes. Like any new software, there are bugs, there are things that people want added in, taken out, modified, etc. So they keep changing it. Check back here often. It's been changed about 3 times in the last week, which is not uncommon. As it gets further and further out, a year from now, it'll be less and less common to see the updates. But for now, they're coming fast and furious as they fix all the little bugs and issues that you have whenever you roll out a new software. So what we're going to look for here to download is this software here, RSA3, and the download button is right here. And just like any other software, you're going to click download. You're going to accept the user end user agreement, and it'll put a copy of this on your C drive, and then you'll have it on your laptop or your desktop. I suggest loading this onto your laptop that you're going to bring with you to the racetrack, because when you download the sessions that you have, you're going to want to see them on your laptop, not on the device, because the device will tell you what lap time you did. Your laptop with the RS3 analysis software will tell you how you did that lap time, and then you can implement some changes based on that in the next session that you go out. So put this on a laptop, bring your laptop with you to the racetrack. You're going to want to use it. So if you haven't already downloaded this version of the software, go ahead and click download now. It'll take you 5 or 10 minutes or so to download it, get it on your computer, and get it open. And in the next screen, we're going to open up my version of RS3. It'll look a little different than yours because I've already got my own personalized screen on it. I'm going to show you how to do that. So if you haven't downloaded, pause the video, download now, and then unpause it when you're done. If you've already got it up and running, great, then we'll get going. So now let's open up RS3. And that is this page here. As I said, this is my personalized screen. I've already got our own logo on it. And this is how it opens every time I open the software. So you should be looking at something like this, although instead of the PK Data logo, it'll be white, say RSA3, and then has a background of a bunch of their devices overlaid on it. But that's the right software. So we'll just go across the top real quick. We're going to focus right now on what is in this drop-down menu here. But the other buttons are this is the button here that allows you to communicate with your device, the old RS2 version of the analysis software, which we don't use, the new RS3, a track management page, a sensors page, a couple of communication buttons. This button here is where I have already signed into and set up and signed into an online account. You'll want to do that because it's going to allow you to share your profile and those settings across multiple computers. So you're going to be able to do some work and set up a profile, and then instead of having to replicate all that work on your home computer, you'll be able to just share them between, say, your laptop and your desktop. And there's some other exciting features coming too. So go ahead and set up a profile and a username, password, etc. if you haven't already. The Wi-Fi tab, that's what's used to sign on to your devices. And then the ECU and the others are the update tabs. We'll get to how to update firmware software in another video. And this button here, the one that says AIM, that takes you right to their main software page. Okay. So what we're going to do from here is we're going to configure the software. There's just a few things that we have to set up before we can begin using the software effectively, and you want to get it configured for you. So again, up in the settings tab up here, the upper left-hand corner, the little wrench and the screwdriver, the first thing we're going to do is select language and units preferences. This is pretty much self-explanatory. You choose your language. And then units of measure, you want to choose which units you want the measurements to be in. So for here we have percent in percentages, acceleration is in G's, roll rate is degrees per seconds, altitude is in feet, distance is in feet, number, which means if it's a number like say a gear, it's just a number. Position in inches, okay? So I like mine to be in millimeters. I'm going to select millimeters, shock position in millimeters, ride heights also in millimeters. Pressures I like in PSI, speed in mile per hour, temperature in Fahrenheit, time analysis in seconds, and you can also, that's the only one they give you there, speed and velocity miles per hour, and you can obviously do it in metric, feet per second, meters per second, centimeters per second, meters per minute, or kilometers per hour. We're going to choose miles per hour. Shock velocities are in millimeters per second. RPMs on a second per second analysis is based on RPM per second, not per minute, which has nothing to do with the RPM in your engine. We'll get to that later. That is revolutions per minute. And then AFR, that is air fuel ratio. If you're doing lambda values, you can change those as well. So now that I've got those set where I want them, and you guys can go ahead and select the ones that you want that make sense, but probably something like that, and you just click OK. So you've got your language, your units of measure, and then click OK. The next tab that we're going to look at, the data download tab. There's another way to get to this screen if you need to in the future, and I'll show that when we get to it. But this here is basically where we're going to spend most of the time in the video. This is going to determine how you handle your data, how it's downloaded, where it's stored, and how it's stored. So you want to think about this a little bit, and don't be afraid to change things and reconfigure it. If it doesn't work for you the way that you've got it set up, come in here, set it up again, try something different until it works. But basically what we're looking at here, we'll look at two things first. We'll look at the root folder download, and this is where the data goes to when it downloads from your device onto your laptop. For the most part, you guys are just going to use the standard default setting that they have here, which is on your C drive, AIM Sport Race Studio 3 user data. And that's fine unless you want to install, unless you've got like an external drive that you need to put it on or something like that. That is where your data is going to go. Then down here, copy downloaded data to another folder. So I have this going to my Google Drive, where it goes to my drive and a folder, my data for analysis. That's my own personal data. I have, when I download a customer's data, I put that in a separate folder. I just keep mine separate from the main, just to make it easier to find. But this does two things. One is it creates a backup. So if something happens to my laptop at the racetrack, if it's stolen, if I drop it, if it rains on it, or any number of things that can go wrong, obviously with a laptop, I've already got the data backed up from the laptop right to my Google Drive. The second thing is it's easier when I get home and I have my desktop and I want to use my big screens to be able to do the data analysis. Then it's already loaded onto the Google Drive, and then I can just go get it off the Google Drive, import it. I don't have to get the laptop out of the truck, set it up, turn it on, share things, etc. So it creates a backup and creates a second place for me to go get the data from another computer. It makes it easy. So this middle of the screen here now, there's two tabs, there's folder structure and file name, okay? I kind of keep these the same. We'll start with folder structure. The folder structure determines how you're going to store that data and then what parameters you can use in order to go find that data later on. I have a bunch of boxes checked, and the reason is that I work with multiple people that have multiple motorcycles running in multiple championships, multiple venues, and sometimes multiple vehicles. You might have a couple of motorcycles and a couple of different championships, and if I don't have it this granular, it can be very difficult to find. So I just have it set up so the main folder, everything goes in by date. And then the secondary search after that, the next folder in is by racer. And then after that, what track they were at, and then what championship, which championship in AIM speak would be the series like Moto America, CCS, Niemer, Willow Springs, WSMC, etc. Those would be your championship. So what series you're running. If you're running a track day organization, just put the name of the track day there. That's fine, because if you do 2 or 3 different track days, let's say at the same track, if you've got 2 or 3 different, say, providers, you'll want to go look to see which championship, quote unquote, was I in when you're looking for that data. Then it goes by vehicle. So if you have multiple vehicles, let's say you've got an R6 and also an Aprilia RS660, you want to separate those data files so that makes it easier to find. You can tell which motorcycle you're looking for. And last is venue type. Venue type we call an outing. That would be, for instance, a qualifying session, a race session, or a practice session. And you can customize that. That comes up as a drop-down list later on when we go and download the data, which we'll get to in a different video. But here is where we actually create that drop-down list. And rather than have 30 or so choices, we're going to narrow it down a little bit, which we'll get to in just a minute. That is under the Download Venue Types tab. So we'll get to that in a moment. And then the other tab here is the file name, and I have it file it basically the same order and the same structure as my folders. That way it's just the same for me, and it's how I do it. You guys can do this however you want to do it. If it's just you and one motorcycle, you can dump it all into just the one date folder, and that's it. If it's you and 2 motorcycles, then you can just check off date and time and then vehicle, and that's it. But I would also always check off venue type and championship, because that way you know what organization you were with, and the venue type tells you which practice it is, which race it is, which qualifying session if you do that. So what I have here works. It's not very complicated, and it allows me to very quickly filter the results later on when I'm looking for a particular person, a particular bike, or a particular championship or track. It's already sorted for me, and it's real easy for me to find. So we'll just review this tab real quick. You've got the root folder. I would leave that alone. AIM selected the C drive, puts it where it's very happy. I wouldn't change that unless you need to. The G drive down the bottom is my backup, so I send a copy to my Google Drive just in case something happens to the laptop. The folder structure here is how I want the data to be stored in the different folders, so it makes it easy for me to find. Excuse me, when I'm looking later on, I go by date. So on a particular day, every download from that day is in that one folder, and then it's the subfolders are racer, and then tracks, and then championship, vehicle, and venue. And I do the same again with the file name. I just add the logged file name, so that way AIM attaches a time date stamp to it, so each one stays unique, so that there's no chance of there being any duplicate names. And it makes it easy to find. Okay, so that is your your download data tab. The download movies tab we don't use. This pertains to their Smarty Cam and how it integrates the movie and the data and how that stuff is filed. If you uncheck that, you'll see it looks just the same as the tab that we were just in, except up here it says use same settings as downloaded data. So if you've got a Smarty Cam, this is where you can organize that data. If you don't, to keep from getting confused, I keep that checked off so the screen stays mostly blank. That way it doesn't look like the download data tab. The third tab, download venue types. So the download venue types is where we're going to create that drop-down list of what we see when we go to do an actual data download. It's going to basically ask you, is this practice session 1, 2, 3, 4, qualifying race, etc. So the names on the right-hand side here, and you'll see when I hover, there's some of them changed to click to customize. I'll show you that in a second. The ones that show up here, and they come up in alphabetical order, I get, practice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, race, and qualifying. And that is how they show up in the drop-down list. So if I just finish practice number 2, I can click on practice number 2, and then it stores it as practice 2. So a quick note about that. Practice, why do I have practice 1 through 8? Well, at a racetrack, when we're racing, generally you only get like 2, maybe 3 practice sessions in the morning, and then you go off racing in the afternoon. So why do I have 8? Well, because at track days, you might ride once an hour for 8 hours and get 8 practices. So what they allow us to do is to customize the name. And all we have to do is once something is checked, and I'll show you here on qualifying for, once I check it, you'll see the click to customize window show up. Click here. You can type in whatever you want. So this would be, let's say custom race, text, right? And it only give you so many, so I ran out of room. So maybe it would just be custom race 1, okay? Hit enter, and now you'll see when we get to that download screen, that's what will show up in my drop-down list. Now, if I don't want to use it, I uncheck it, and it all goes away. We won't see that in the drop-down list. So here in my drop-down list, I'm going to get 8 practice sessions, 1 qualifying, and 1 race. So I'm going to have 10 options to choose from instead of all of these that are showing up on this whole page right now. So that's a way that you guys can you can select what you want in that list, customize how you see it in that list. Their basic default stuff is usually pretty good. But what I did to get the number of practice sessions is because they only give you up to practice 4. Starting here with test 1, 2, 3, and 4, I changed it to practice 5, 6, 7, 8. So that way I've got 8 practices to choose from a day. And that is your download venue types. That's where you decide how you want to see your drop-down list. The last tab here is the Advanced tab. For here, you basically use their default settings. And what I would just leave checked off is auto-select downloadable files and skip selection of one-lap-only sessions. So what that does is, if you haven't downloaded a session already and it has more than 1 lap, the software will automatically select that session, that last outing, should be your last outing, to be downloaded, and that way you don't have to go and check and say, I want this one, that one, that one, and that one, etc. It will just automatically select them all. Why do we skip selection of 1 lap only? Because those are things like engine warm-up, a trip over to tech inspection or to the bathroom or something like that. So anytime that the requirements are met for starting to log, your device will log. But if you don't go around the racetrack and go by start-finish, it'll just count it as 1 long lap because that's just how the software has to work. And you don't want to see those. You don't care about speed on the way to tech. You don't care what your lap time was on the way to tech. Maybe you do. But it would be hard to get that information without a start-finish line. But in any case, I just have it skip that. The do not merge file. So real quick, what that's for: do not merge, log, all logged on the same day, or merge them all. Why would you want to merge your data files? Think about an endurance race. The race starts, the motor's running, the flag drops, and then you go. So now the data logger starts logging. Now you're out of gas, right? Your stint's over, you're going to come in and you're going to shut the bike off, fuel it up, change a tire, and go back out again. So when you do that, when you refire the motorcycle and start down the pit road again, AIM is going to treat that as like a second session. For instance, 2 separate practice sessions that you may have had that morning. But as far as we're concerned, that's 1 long race. So you may want to merge some of those files together. So if you go out and you do an endurance race that has 2 pit stops, you're going to have 3 sessions. Your first stint, and then a pit stop, second stint, and a pit stop, and then the final stint. And what you can do is tell it to take those 3 separate sessions and merge them into 1 long race. And that's how you would handle that in that section. This middle section here, if you want to output a different file format for some other form of analysis, you can do that too. You can check that off as needed. It's not something that we're going to cover today, but that's the section where you would handle it. And then analysis mode, just choose RS3 analysis. We're not using RS2 anymore, so I don't have it convert to that sort of format. And we just have it go to the RS3 analysis mode, and that's it. So your advanced tab, real quick, auto select downloadable files, so it does it for you. Skip the 1 lap file. I do not merge files because we're not doing the endurance racing. I don't output anything in a separate format, and again, you can do this later on. If you want to output it into a different format, you can do that. But this would just do it automatically with each download, and that's not necessary. Same with analysis mode. Just use the RS3 analysis and you're good to go. So a quick recap here. Since we're just about done, the data download, this is where you decide how you're going to download your data, where it's going to go, and how it's going to be structured, both file name and folder structures. Download movies, I just leave this checked and ignore it because I don't have a Smarty Cam. I don't know anyone that does for motorcycles. What a Smarty Cam is, real quick, it's basically a GoPro that overlays the data right on top of it, and it's used a lot in car racing. They point them at the driver's hands and feet so they can see what the driver is doing, and they'll point one out the front and one out the back. So they might be running 4, 5, 6 of these cameras on a car at any one time, so they can see all around the car what is happening, and inside the car what the driver is doing, and the data gets overlaid onto that video file straight away. So as soon as they look at it, you've got the data up there as well. Things like velocities, accelerations, track position, etc. So we just leave that blank because we don't use them. Download venue types. This again is where you decide what you want to show up in your drop-down list to choose from. So when you do your download, this is what will show up in your drop-down list, and we showed you how to customize it. The Advanced tab should look like this. Check off Auto Select Downloadable Files, skip selection of one only lap sessions, and check off Use RS3 Analysis. And once you've done that, click OK. The other tabs now, AIM Sim Racing. Again, with the motorcycle, we don't really run simulators yet. Maybe we will someday. They do sim racing, etc. So that's where those files go. And again, we don't use it. Conversion of files, and again, this is when you want to export files into a different format to be analyzed outside of RS3. That's where you do it. Upload tracks and data to AIM server. If you ever need customer support, if you've got a corrupt data file, something's not working properly and you can't figure it out, you're going to contact AIM support. This is where you do it through this window right here. I haven't needed to yet. It's been very good, and I've been fortunate, I guess. But that is where that takes place for customer support. Wi-Fi and Ethernet settings here. If you're running a Mac, you need to uncheck this box, otherwise the thing won't go out and find your devices. And that's all you would need from that. And then screen image options. Okay, so this is where, as I said when we started, I've already got a custom image, and you can see what is on the screen here looks very much like what is on the startup screen behind me. And you simply click here to select an image, and it goes to a file folder, and you can pull one of those. I've already done it. I'm going to click cancel. Select background. So the image is the square in the middle here, and the background are the two gray boxes on either side, and that is where you can select it, any color for the background, and you can do custom colors as well, different gradients, etc. I'm going to click cancel because it's already where I want it. But you would upload a picture maybe of yourself on your motorcycle, something cool you want to have up there, picture of your kids, whatever you'd like to have. The AIM default gets you back to the one that it opened with when you first opened it up. Then it had the AIM startup screen with their logo and the devices behind it. And then set start screen timeout. If you walk away from your software, so for me 10 minutes, it'll go back and it'll go from whatever I'm doing, the analysis, configuration, download, etc., and it'll go back to the screen that we have right here that is on the on my startup page. Okay, so that's where you can set your custom screen options. Kind of cool. So I'll click cancel since mine's already done. And then the last couple here, software behavior. So there's really only one thing two things that you're going to look at here. Leave these two checked. It's the way the software operates, and it works fine. Leave the automation alone. Use flat toolbars. You'll have to restart RS3 to do it, but if you look up here, you see how across the top, all of these buttons have a box around them. If you go to use flat toolbars, all you get is the text or the icon. You don't get the little box, so I just leave that one unchecked. And then the other one, the RS3 start page. So I've got it set to start from this image here that we were just talking about and configuring. The other way is if you go to start from the last one used, well, the last page I was on was the configurations page, that little gear in the upper left. It'll go right to that. But I prefer to have it start up with our cool little startup screen. So I'm going to click cancel, so it doesn't change any of that. And then the last thing is advanced, and again, this is sort of import functions that they have for more advanced users, and when you're maybe using in conjunction with that acquisition an ECU that's actually managing a lot of this. So that is where those functionalities are taking place. If you've got a Solo 2 or a 2DL, you'll never use that. Don't worry about it. And quite frankly, if you're using those functionalities, you're probably not watching this video anyway. But you can click around there and see what it is. There's really nothing in there. It's going to ask you where you want to import a file from, and that's about it. So that's a tour of Ames RSA3 3, how to install and set it up. And we stepped through how to configure it to work for you, how to get your download files, folder structure, etc., how to set the screen up. In future videos, what we'll be looking at next will be how to use this software to interface with your Solo 2 or your 2DL, and then after that, we'll get into data analysis. In the meantime, I hope you have enjoyed this video and you'll watch the rest of them. And remember, data is knowledge, knowledge is power, power is money, and money is tires. Thanks for watching.